Hello and welcome to the channel. I'm your host, Welcome Matt, and today I'm going to show you how I drafted the best Lifegain mill deck in Final Fantasy Draft on Arena. Spoilers, it's not the best, but this was a fun draft and I want to share it. Before I show you the gameplay though, I'm going to walk you through some of my draft picks. There's also definitely a lot of thought that goes into my drafting strategy. So here's my step-by-step guide to drafting on Magic Arena. Step 1 is to not care about preview season because I honestly kind of thought we were still playing like Dragonstorm. Step 2, never play Final Fantasy. I don't really understand the hype. Step 3, what's the best part of a sandwich? That's right, it's the bread. Bread stands for bombs, or your best cards if you get to untap with them, you win the game. Removal, or the way you make sure your opponent doesn't untap and kill you. Evasion is stuff like flying, trample, or menace. It's ways to break stalemated boards. Quick tangent about why evasion is important, because I often forget why. Draft is grindy, and every resource matters. On top of that, combat tricks are very prevalent, so players very quickly like to turtle up and refuse to enter the red zone unless they know they can go in. Or they're a gambling addict and just pray you don't have an answer. Bluffing is a really big factor in draft games because, unlike in Constructed, you don't always know every deck right away. If you degen draft a million times and learn the format, then you'll probably have those answers, but for filthy casuals like you and me, we won't know every combat trick, and especially not every removal spell in each color. Anyway, back to bread. A is your attackers. It's what creatures you want to go face with. And D is defenders. It's what you want to use to block with. Step 4 is to forget bread and just force draft whatever your pack one pick one tells you to. Step 5, ignore signals. Never pivot. Pivoting means you are admitting that your strategy is weak and that you are flawed. Okay, all that out of the way, let's go over the awesome Hope Aerith Water Crystal deck. Pack 1 Pick 1 is, of course, Aerith Gainsborough. She has lifelink, and whenever you gain a life, put a +1 counter on her. So she's a self-feeding Ajani's Pridemate, which happens to be one of my favorite Magic cards ever printed. When Aerith dies, which I'm pretty sure doesn't normally happen because she's a main character with like plot armor, but anyway, you get to give every other legendary creature you control +1 counters equal to her own. So everyone gets +2 if she has 2. That requires a lot of setup, but don't worry, I quickly found one of her best friends in this format. Dude, we're actually going to live the dream right now. Hope Estheim was my third pick of Pack 1. He also has lifelink, but most importantly, at the beginning of my end step, each opponent is going to mill X cards, where X is the amount of life I gain this turn. And that's how we're milling with Lifegain. Milling a card is putting the top card of your library directly into your graveyard. So in Magic, you can mainly lose by being at 0 life, but you also lose by attempting to draw from a deck that has 0 cards. And on Arena, you even get a cool little mill-specific animation instead of the normal explosion when you lose that way. Draft has the smallest minimum deck requirement out of the main formats, making it the easiest to reduce the amount of cards from someone's deck down to 0. Standard, Pioneer, and Modern, and also the other 60-card formats require at least 60 cards, while Commander requires exactly 100 cards. Players also naturally draw cards and sometimes will mill themselves on purpose to put cards into the graveyard that they want to use later. So our plan only really requires us to mill about 20 cards, which is not that hard. So basically, Aerith and Hope are both going to gain me life when they deal damage, and they both do something pretty strong when I gain life. The thing is, Hope and Aerith are both really small 2/2 creatures, which means they can very easily die. So I'm going to have to find ways to protect them if I want to actually make it through this draft. There are only 2 more important cards from this first pack that actually found a place in the final deck. Those are Delivery Mogul, I don't know, which is a 3/2 with flying for 4 mana. When it enters, I get to go search my deck for any 2 mana or less artifact and put it directly into my hand. I know this draft will probably have a lot of fun 2 mana artifacts, and honestly, at this point, I know I was debating grabbing just my favorite card from the set, Black Mage's Staff. I also just start spamming Black Mage's Rods. Luckily, Aerith kept me in check, and we continue to draft blue and white Lifegain and also artifacts. Phoenix Down is the other artifact we got from this pack, and it's a wonderful artifact that can bring one creature with mana value 4 or less from my graveyard directly back to the battlefield. It comes in tapped though. You will see it used a lot, just to go and get my bombs back after they somehow end up in the graveyard. Pack 2, Pick 1. It honestly was not as easy as Pack 1, and the rare wasn't even that good. It's just some like 8 mana loser that would just kind of rot in my hand if I was even in black to begin with. So I didn't end up grabbing it. Let's go with something else better here, which is Squall Leonhart, who's technically Danitha Capture Paragon. Final Fantasy has this amazing bonus sheet of cards that are cool game arts from, I think, Final Fantasy over old Magic cards that aren't legal in Standard but are legal in this draft. So you could pull a Lightning Bolt, a Rhystic Study, or in my case, a Danither Capture Paragon. Not as iconic or as expensive as those other examples, but they will fit very nicely into my Lifegain artifact deck because Squall is a legendary creature, note Aerith, that has First Strike, meaning he hits first in combat and can't be easily traded with, Vigilance, meaning he doesn't have to tap when he attacks, so he can block, and best of all, Lifelink, so he helps out Aerith and Hope. He also makes my auras and equipments cost 1 generic mana less to cast, which has its niche functions in the deck. The best part is definitely the 3 very strong evergreen keywords. But he is also a 2/2, so we do need to find some ways to make him stronger. Okay, real quick, here's a content warning for all my unemployed viewers. I will be using the J-Slur. Our next pick should help solve our 2/2 problem. White Mage's Staff, an equipment with Job Select, which makes a 1/1 hero that the equipment will attach itself to when it enters. The Job Select cards are some of my favorite draft cards ever printed because of how versatile they are. They aren't a creature, but they basically come down as one, and they'll leave behind a pretty sweet set of abilities. To balance these, the cost to equip them onto another creature is usually much higher than they would be if they didn't have Job Select. But that's okay, because players won't kill your heroes often, as they will lose card advantage doing so. White Mage's Staff gives +1/+1, and whenever this creature attacks, you gain 1 life. This triggers before Aerith attacks, which means she gets a +1 counter before she's able to be blocked, and this does come in handy. From there, for the rest of the pack, we're going to grab generic removal and counter spells, and some other miscellaneous cards. Nothing that flashy, I'll explain it later in the draft. Syncopate, great card. Great counterspell. I'd like to see it. No one plays around Syncopate. Alright, on to the last pack. Pack 3. We find our holy mill grail, the Water Crystal. Don't make me play mill. Don't let me play mill. Please. Any other Lifegain? Because if not, I'm gonna go mill. Alright, Water Crystal. At first, this 2 blue and 2 generic mana artifact looks terrible in draft. It's just going to discount your blue spells by 1 generic, which is like, whatever. That notably helps with X spells like Syncopate, so that's something. The best part of Water Crystal is the fact that whenever your opponents would mill a card, they mill that many +4 instead. And that's a replacement effect, so it doesn't go on the stack like other triggers. It just replaces the effects of the mill triggers. And, for 6 mana, it can also mill your opponents for the amount of cards in your hand. 1 card in your hand becomes 5. You can see how this gets out of control. So overall, this deck's game plan is simple. If we can stop our opponents from beating us over the head long enough for us to quietly put cards from the top of their deck directly into our mouth, we should have a solid chance at winning. Alright, enough yapping about cards, let's just go get into the games. Okay, so in game 1, we keep a handful of 3-drops, and notably, Squall. We start by playing a Plains and pass, and my opponent reacts by playing a Swamp and passing. Turn 2, I play an island and pass. They play a mountain and cast a Hectize, which is a 1/1 that will make me discard a card when it enters. I choose to discard my second island in hand and move to my turn. Turn 3, I play another Plains and cast a Gaelicat, which is a 3 mana 1/3 that can become a 3/3 if I have 2 or more artifacts. As awesome as it would be to slam Hope or Squall, I need to hold them back because red and black usually hold the most answers to 2/2 creatures. He plays a side quest, Blitzball, which gives a creature he controls each turn +2/+0. So he can hit me for 3 this turn. When you do enough damage, the side quest is going to become an equipment that gives a creature +2/+0 and double strike. I choose to trade my creature for theirs here, which is dumb, but whatever. Turn 4, I miss my land drop, and I just play out a Paladin's Arms, giving me a 3/2 hero with Ward 1, so it'll be a little more taxing to target her. He plays another Swamp and then casts a Poison the Waters, and chooses to look at my hand and discard any non-land card. He'll pick Squall, which means my mill plan continues to fly under the radar. Turn 5, I play another Plains and slam Hope without any life gain, and hope he lives till the next turn so I can start swinging. My opponent plays a Blitzball artifact that basically just taps for 1 mana of any color, then plays a Clubtrub Foyer. Turn 6, I miss my land drop again, drawing more removal, so I'll just attack with my hero token and expect him to let the damage through. But following in my footsteps, he takes a really unnecessary trade and lets me give the Paladin Arms to Hope. My opponent then plays another land and casts a second Clubtrub Foyer as his last spell in hand. This means Hope's going to live, and if I remove the Clubtrub, then I can freely swing in with Hope and start gaining a lot of life and milling a lot of cards. Turn 7, I find another Plains, and at sorcery speed, I'll cast my Fate of the Suncrest to destroy target non-land permanent, being their only blocker. I swing for 4, gain 4, and mill him for 4. He has 15 life and 31 cards remaining. His turn 7 is spent casting a lightning bolt, cutting down my plan to do anything with hope. Turn 8, I draw into a Titus Blitzball Star, and he lets me put a +1 counter on him whenever an artifact enters. On top of that, whenever he attacks, he'll tap an opponent's creature down. So, in a 1v1, I can force him to either attack or not be able to hold up blockers anyway. My opponent's going to just choose to draw and pass. Turn 9, I give Titus some combat training, drawing me 2 cards and putting a +1 counter on him. I swing for 3, and my opponent is down to 12. He casts another Heck Dice, and I'll just discard one of the 2 lands I drew from the combat training. Turn 10, I draw a Rook Turret, which is an artifact creature with flying, and whenever an artifact enters under my control, I can draw a card and then discard a card. What matters here is having another +1 counter on Titus, so that way I can tap down their blocker and swing for 4 more, putting him down to 8. They cast an Unexpected Request, which lets them borrow a creature of mine for a turn and attack with it. They'll hit me for 6, flipping their Blitzball side quest, and then pass the turn back to me. Turn 11, I look at my Paladin's Arms, and they concede before I can equip it. That was fun. My artifacts continue to outvalue my opponent, so I didn't really get to mill him, but let's go to Game 2. Game 2, I keep a 3-land opening hand because I'm honestly really tired of mulliganing mediocre 3-land hands and then getting stuck having a mulligan down to 5 because the next hand's got 0 or 1 lands. Turn 1, my opponent plays a forest and a Saz's Chocobo, a 0/1 bird that can very quickly grow out of control with its landfall ability. Every time a land enters the battlefield, Saz's Chocobo is going to get a +1 counter on it. So as the game progresses, this little bird scales, and he scales hard. On my turn 1, I draw, play an island, and pass. Turn 2, my opponent plays another forest, puts a counter on their bird, and swings for 1 damage. In their second main phase, they play a Gubu Gardener, which is a 2-mana Llanowar Elf with just more toughness. In response, I'm going to draw, play a Plains, and pass again. On turn 3, my opponent plays a tapped red and green Townland, making Saz's Chocobo a 2/3, and swings in for 2. They left their Gubu untapped, showing me they want to cast something at instant speed. I decide to play a Plains and pass, waiting to see what they want to do. They cast a Precious Wanderings, which lets them grab a land from their deck and put it onto the battlefield tapped. Then they get a +1 counter on a creature they control. Allegedly, because that's a lot of value for an opponent who's gone unchecked for 3 turns, so I had to counter it with Syncopate. Turn 4, he plays another forest, gets another counter, and this time fully swings at me for 4 damage, putting me down to 13. He passes, and I play an island, and again, pass. Holding up Ice Magic for turn 5 to make my opponent choose between putting the Chocobo on either the top or bottom of their deck with the second tier of Ice Magic. They opt to put on the bottom, casting another Precious Wanderings, and hit me for 2. My turn 5, I play an island, and finally develop my board with the Paladin's Arms that has sat in my hand all game long. Turn 6, he just attacks with his Mana Dork, and honestly, that's the right call, because the Gobbler is going to live through my blocker. However, I hold a 1-mana Magic Damper that gives my creature Hexproof and +1/+1 until end of turn, swinging the trade in my favor, letting my hero live. He's then going to play a 1-mana 1/1 with Death Touch, which does stall my ability to start chipping away at his life total, but I'm content sitting back and trying to build up a board state. I'm going to play a Plains and cast a Combat Tutorial, holding up some more removal. Turn 7, he gets in for 1 with the Death Toucher, and then plays a Colossal Dreadmaw, which is a 6/6 with Trample. Wait, why did he gain 3 life? Oh, he has a Balam T-Rexasaur. My bad. Same card, just with Forest Cycling and the Enter's ability to gain them 3 life. That 6/6 is bigger than anything I could hope to cast, so I flash in Stuck in Summoner's Sanctum to tap the big guy and make sure he can't attack until that aura is removed. I play an island, attack for 4, and then I cast my Delivery Moogle and search up White Mage's Staff. I don't cast it because I want to hold up removal just in case a big scary hasty creature is going to come down. On turn 8, my opponent casts a Chocobo Kick, which lets any of their creatures deal damage to one of mine. The way Death Touch works is that any damage that creature does will count as lethal to kill any creature receiving the damage. So even though the creature is dealing 1 damage, the damage is still enough to kill my Moogle. They swing in for 1, now I'm at 9. And then they cast Fiora, Wild Rose Warrior. That card has a lot of text, and my opponent has 1 card remaining in their hand, so on my turn, I slam White Auracite to exile the creature until my White Auracite leaves. It also has the added advantage of tapping to add 1 white mana. With no blockers, I swing for 4, putting my opponent down to 15. Then I cast the White Mage's Staff to make a 2/2 hero to have some blockers available. Turn 9, my opponent casts Reach the Horizon to go find 2 lands with different names and then put them onto the battlefield tapped. After that, they leave their Death Toucher up and pass. I'm going to play a Plains and cast my Flying Cat and then full swing. I don't mind trading the 1/1 hero token out for their real card, and I want to attach the Paladin Arms to the cat anyway, so I'm going to pass, holding up my removal because I apparently can never be too safe. Turn 10, my opponent plays a Forest and Iridia's Return, letting them return 2 permanent cards from their graveyard to their hand. They choose their 1/1 Death Toucher and the Goober, and then he'll play them both. Luckily, my cat's in the air, so I'm going to swing freely at them with a big 6/5 white flying mage pouting cat, putting them down to 7. Turn 11, they play a Saz's Chocobo and pass. I draw Aerith a little late into the game and cast her. I then go swinging again, leaving my opponent at 1. They draw their last pathetic card, and it's not Exodia, so they concede. Game 3, I open with another 3-lander and Squall, so I gotta keep that. I also happen to have 2 pieces of removal, so not bad. My opponent is forced to mulligan, but they find a keepable 6 and play a tap black and white town and pass. I follow with a plains and pass. Turn 2, we both play lands and just pass. Turn 3, they play Paladin's Arms and pass. I got excited, so I slam my Squall, hoping they didn't have removal. Turn 4, my hubris is punished when they play a Cornered by Black Mages. It makes me sacrifice a creature, my only creature, and they get a 0/1 Black Mage token that'll ping me for 1 damage whenever they cast a non-creature spell. The hordes of those grow out of control fast, so I need to make sure my opponent isn't going to spam Black Mage effects. They swing for 3 with their hero and pass. I'll play an island and cast my Delivery Moogle, looking for a Phoenix down. Turn 5, they cast a white Aura Sight, targeting my Moogle. Then I eat 1 from the mage and 3 more from the hero, putting me down to 13. I play the Phoenix down and pass. I want to wait for their end step to revive Squall, or also have the option to cast a Syncopate on whatever threat they play. Turn 6, they play a scary card that I have to counter with Syncopate. Then I'm going to eat another 4 combined damage from the cast and swing, putting me down to 9. I play a land, debate what removal I want to cast for way too long, and end up just passing the turn. Turn 7, they attack with their hero, and I cast Fate of the Suncrist to kill it before it can hit me. In their second main, they cast an Al-Bhed Salvagers, which can drain me for 1 every time a creature or artifact my opponent controls goes to the graveyard from the battlefield. Then I revive Squall with my Phoenix down on their end step, so that way Squall can immediately start attacking. On my real turn, I cast a Paladin's Arms and attach it to Squall for a free attack to start regaining my lost life. Second main, I cast my Zac Fair, who's a 0/1 that enters with a +1 counter. He also has an ability to sacrifice himself for 1 mana to then give his +1 counters and equipment to another creature I control. And if that wasn't selfless enough, he also gives that creature indestructible. So he buffs someone, protects them, but at the cost of his own life. Turn 8, my opponent opens with a Sephiroth's Intervention, which destroys Squall because my opponent has the extra mana to pay for the Paladin's Arms ward cost. Then he swings in for 2 with the Al-Bhed Salvagers and puts me down to 10. I draw Combat Training, which works well with Zac because the counters are hopefully going to get moved over after he's sacrificed. I'm praying that this Power Crept Divination can get me out of the pickle that I'm in. I find another land and a Rook turret that I can cast, so I'm going to play that and hold open mana for Zac. I go swinging with Zac to start turning the game back around. My opponent plays another white Aura Sight, sealing away my fresh Rook turret and attacks for another 2, so now I'm at 7. My turn, I rip another Fate of the Suncrist off the top and go to blow up the white Aura Sight with my Moogle underneath to get its entrance trigger again, swinging the card advantage back into my favor. Their Salvagers do drain me for 1, so now I'm at 6, and that's getting a little scary for me. I find and play my White Mage's Staff and swing with Zac for 2 more. Turn 9, they play the main set version of Squall, Seed Mercenary, which gives solo attacking creatures my opponent's control Double Strike. Double Strike notably hits in first strike damage and then again during the normal damage step, so I need to have blockers with enough toughness to survive the first strike phase if I even want to try and trade. Luckily, Zac is indestructible, so this time around the Moogle lives and kills his Drainer. On my turn, I draw a Syncopate, so I just move the staff over to the Moogle, making a 6/5 and hold up my other removal. They go to cast another Al-Bhed Salvagers, and I snap Syncopate that so I don't have to deal with it. They follow up with a devastating Heck Dice to get rid of the removal spell sitting in my hand. They swing with a double striking Squall, and I jump with my 1/1 hero. Next turn, I draw a land and foolishly put the Paladin's Arms on the hero. Why I didn't try to buff the Moogle is beyond me. I swing with the Moogle also foolishly to gain a single life. Turn 10, I'm forced to block with the hero to not die to Squall. On my turn, I just draw a land and pass. This spells my doom. Turn 11, they play a swath of creatures, swing with Squall, still threatening lethal by the way, and with enough damage to still trade with the Moogle. My next turn, I realize I can't handle that board state, and I concede. This game was probably lost because Aerith, Hope, and the Water Crystal all decided to take a vacation for some reason. Totally not because of my late game misplays and my opponent's wide spread of removal. Couldn't be that. Alright, we're in game 4, currently 2-1. This game starts with another 3 mana intensive hand, but I make it through my first 2 turns completely unscathed. Turn 3, I think I've learned from my mistake of letting Squall eat the good removal first, so I'll play Ashe, Princess of Dalmasca. If she can attack, she lets me look for artifacts. Sadly, she doesn't, and is once again cornered by Black Mages. Turn 4, I big baller play Squall with absolutely no protection and ask my opponent if they've got 2 removal spells. They don't, so they're going to just play this weird mill card, Fang Fearless Issei. I can't pronounce that. That will let my opponent draw a card and lose a life whenever a card leaves their graveyard, but only once a turn. Turn 5, I give Squall some more combat training and draw Stuck in Summoner Sanctum and swing out. They chump with their Black Mage and attempt to Fatal Push Squall. Luckily, I can counter that with my Syncopate. Their turn, they drop a 2/2 Dire Rat that leaves behind a treasure when it dies, and they pass. Turn 6, I play a White Mage's Staff and sleep their Dire Rat so Squall can get in for more damage. I notably have 3 mana up for a Fate of Suncrest if they attack with something cool. They play a Gigantoad, which is bigger than Squall, and threatens to grow even bigger if they find a 6 land. Turn 7, I top deck the Water Crystal and excitedly slam it, even though it really has no effect right now. I put the staff on Squall and pass without attacking because Squall can't handle their 2 creatures alone. They drop a Geist Van Bazelar, which lets the opponent choose between both players sacrificing a non-token creature, a token creature, or an enchantment. They obviously choose non-token because they have a sleeping rat they can shake money out of, and I only have Squall. Then they full swing and I chump block the big toad, taking 2, but only going to 24. Turn 8, I find a Delivery Moogle off the top and grab a Phoenix down and hold up my removal spell. Unluckily, on their turn, they play a Heck Dice and I discard the Phoenix down. They swing with the Toad and the Geist, so I respond by blowing up the Toad and eating 3 more damage. They play a Cloud of Darkness second main phase, which then gives my Moogle -X/-X, where X is their creatures in their graveyard, and I happen to fill their graveyard enough by killing the frog. I was definitely outplayed there. Turn 9, I draw my 8th land and hold it so that way I can use the mill ability of my Water Crystal. I pass and eat a full swing of 9, knocking me down from 21 to 12. Find a Hope and play my land, but forgettably don't get Hope any bigger with the staff. They full swing, including the Heck Dice, which I block and eat 8, but heal off 2, so I'm only dropped to 6. That Cloud is a flyer though, so I need to figure something out or my hot start to this draft is quickly going to fade. I apparently don't understand the Water Crystal's replacement effect. Doesn't work if I try to add 4 to 0 cards, so I just throw away 6 mana on their end step to do nothing. I rip a Gaily Cat and give Hope the staff. I swing for 3, gain another 1 life, putting me at 10 and milling my opponent down to 10 cards left in their library. On their turn, they swing with the Cloud and the Geist, so I block with my Cat and go down to 7. Second main, they play a Mage's Rod, leaving them just enough blockers to handle Hope. I won't get the mill trigger if he dies in combat because he needs to be around for my end step. They give the Rod to their 2/3, making it a 3/3, and play a land and pass. I draw my last card, and it just so happens to be Zakfair, the sacrificial goat. By giving Hope +1/+1 and indestructible, Zak guarantees my Hope will gain me enough life and live through combat to make my opponent mill 5 + 4 more cards from the Water Crystal. That is exactly enough to mill my opponent out. Give him indestructible. Okay. Need 5 life this turn. End the turn. Mill 10. Oh. And we win with the mill. Hope and Zakfair were crazy top decks there. The Water Crystal Hope top deck was crazy. I got an achievement for that. I haven't won with mill in so long. We're now 3-1, netting me an even amount of packs and gems to make this draft be worth the 1,500 I spent to enter. Game 5. We start on the draw with yet another 3-mana heavy hand, but we've got Aerith and the Water Crystal. My opponent's going to cast a Commune with Beavers to try and shape their hand better. I don't need draw spells to make my hand better because Zakfair isn't done yet and decides he wants back in. So of course, I slam him on turn 1. Risky play if my opponent is in black or red. However, they aren't, and on turn 2, they just play another Gardener to try and start ramping. I play a land and pass. Turn 3, my opponent attempts a Gigantoad, but my body reacts before my brain can, and I cast Syncopate, destroying their tempo. I play my Aerith and swing for 1 with Zak. I hold a White Mage's Staff that I'm planning on slamming to start triggering Aerith. Going nuts. Bang. Awesome. Next turn we're going to go White Mage's... No. We're not going to go White Staff. We're going to go Water Crystal. Idiot. We've got to get our Water Crystal down. Oh. Never mind. Turn 4, my opponent plays Magitech Armor, a 4/4 vehicle with crew 1 that makes a 1/1 hero. This stumps me, so I actually do cast my White Mage's Staff because Editor Matthew is much smarter than Geeked Mill. What the fuck? This stumps my plan, so I do actually cast my White Mage's Staff because Editor Matthew is much smarter than Geeked Mill Cell Matthew. Turn 5, they play a 2/1 Dwarf Guard that'll leave behind a 1/1 hero when it dies. they crew the 4/4 and swing in. Life is a resource, and with my Aerith and White Mage's staff, I'm very happy to start trading blows. I can honestly just out-heal the damage he can do. On my go, I find our last bomb, Hope. The stars really align this game, and my opponent doesn't run much removal, so I kind of just drew into everything great. I go swinging with the White Mage hero to try and gain a life and trigger Hope and Aerith. Turn 5, my opponent plays a Ride the Shoopoof, which says every time they play a land, they get to put a +1 counter on a creature they control, and they can make it a 7/7 once they have 7 mana laying around. It looks like it's a race of the value engines. Unluckily for my opponent, I got my engine online much faster than they did. I attack with the White Mage, gain a life, and they respond by crewing their Magic Armory. I spend 5 mana on my turn to destroy it with my Fate of the Suncrest. I end up just kind of passing afterwards. Turn 6, they play another land, animate the Shoopoof, and swing for 7. I just shrug it off because Aerith and Hope are about to gain all that back for me. Zach Fair clutches up once again, protecting Hope in combat after the Dwarf Guard blocks him, and I get to gain 7 life after both Aerith and Hope hit. You can tell I'm locked in this game because second main, I forego the Water Crystal in hand that I would get to mill for 11 with, and instead opt to play a Paladin's Arms to have a blocker and potentially more ways to protect Hope and Aerith. I end the turn and Hope mills for 7, leaving my opponent at 15 life and just 19 cards. Turn 7, they hold up blockers and pass, so that way Aerith doesn't just constantly swing out for a trillion. I play my Water Crystal and pass it right back. Turn 8, they play a Phoenix down and revive a summoned Chocobo that Hope milled into their graveyard. That is one downside of playing mill. If my opponent likes having a big graveyard, I often end up giving them more ways to kill me before I can mill them out. They play a world map and sacrifice it to go find more lands to trigger Shoopoof. I find Titus Blitzball Star off the top, and that kind of just cements to me that this game has all been about slamming every good card possible in my deck. I play both Titus and my Sage Nutils to give him a +1/+1 counter. I say pass, and both me and my opponent are trying to find some way to break through each other's forts of beefy creatures. Turn 9, they play a Rona Heartily, which gives my opponent a 1/1 dog, and whenever she attacks, another creature my opponent controls is going to get +1/+1 for each creature they control. To break the parity on my turn, I decide to swing out with Aerith and the White Mage to gain life and spread her counters to the 2 Azorious Twinks. My opponent basically full blocks Aerith to get her out of the picture using 8 power, so I can't just use the Magic Damper that I drew to save her. I still cast it so I can kill the Summon Chocobo and get just one more card milled. Aerith dying puts me at 27 and gives my Twinks +5/+5 each, meaning I still had an 8/8 Hope and an 8/7 Titus to block with the next turn. I play Gaily Cat and pass. Hope and the Water Crystal mill my opponent for 13, leaving them at 1 card after they drew for the turn. Seeing all this, my opponent just self-destructs, moving us to 4-1. Alright, we're in game 6. Let's bring this home and see if we can go 7-1. I'll take a 7 or 2, and even a 6-2 would be sweet. Wow. Wow, he had it. He had it. He hit around it. Alright, game. Humans have Block Beast. Oh, it's this fucking guy. I'm cooked. Yeah, you got 8 mana. Alright. That's the end of this run. Profitability, I guess. So, I lost to not playing around, my opponent playing around to syncopate with their very own. And to that 8 mana bum, I saw Pack 2 pick 1. Okay, honestly, that's fair. I shouldn't be talking shit when I'm still brand new to a draft format. Admittedly, that wasn't what I expected. I lost both games by having very mediocre opening hands and getting my good cards killed, doing kind of nothing. Barely anything interesting happened for you to see, but hey, 4-3 by forcing Lifegain and Mill when neither are prominent draft archetypes in this format. I'll take those. I learned that I should always force whatever I see in my first pack, and that I should never follow the draft archetypes that Wizards of the Coast builds the draft experience around. I have not been punished, as this mid 4-3 still netted me 1,400 gems and 3 packs. So, basically profit. I'm not sorry, and it will happen again.